Everybody, hope you guys are all doing well today. Today I'll be reviewing another movie, 500 Days of Summer. This one is directed by Marc Webb. He also directed the Amazing Spider-Man series, number 1, starring Andrew Garfield, Emma Stone, and also the terrible second film. He also directed the 2017 film Gifted, starring Chris Evans and McKenna Grace, a movie that I really want to check out. Haven't gotten the chance to check that one out. Hopefully we'll see that very soon. This is an older film, and it's a very popular film, not only among indie fans, whom it was popular with among at first. It's kind of grown to be a phenomenal, sensation for the masses now. So I'm going to be talking about this film. This film stars Zooey Deschanel and my man JGL, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So let's get right into it. This film is about this guy named Tom who works at this greeting card writing place where basically they produce greeting cards, and he writes the greeting cards. And he meets his boss's assistant. His name is Summer, and it's basically their story. This movie has a knockout performance by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I have been a fan of this guy since I saw Inception, and I was really waiting to see this movie because I wanted to see him in a different role that I haven't seen him in personally. And oh my gosh, this is one of his best performances to date for me personally. He gave a knockout performance in this movie, guys. Zooey Deschanel is someone I feel that I haven't seen enough work from personally, and I don't really like her as an actress, I'd say. But as for Joseph Gordon-Levitt, he was just in his character and really in his element, basically. His character in this film, Tom, is basically supposed to be an everyday sort of guy. And he was able to pull this off really well, and he really got into his character and some of the emotional scenes where he's supposed to be thinking, about like life and fate or whatever. He really got into that, and he really was believable as this character, Tom. Zooey Deschanel, going back to her as Summer. I don't really like her as an actress, and I felt that her performance in this film was not necessarily anything new. I think I know for most of the performance she does that in a very similar sort of way. As someone who's not very familiar with her work, it's also coming from someone who's, not familiar with her work. But as an actress, I feel like she tends to act similarly in every movie. That said, she did a good job of performing her role in this film, or at least a adequate job. I think she was a believable actress as Summer. So both leads did a good job. Now, talking about the chemistry between the two leads. As you know, as you may or may not know, 500 Days of Summer is a very unorthodox romantic comedy film. So having chemistry between these actors was important, but the film does take on a message that's different from your everyday romantic films. So in terms of chemistry, I think that they did a good job of establishing a good chemistry between the two leads. But eventually, when things do get rough and when there's certain discussions about certain things, I felt that they did a good job together and pulling that off as well. And most of this is due to the excellent direction by Marc Webb. Marc Webb did a really interesting film in that there's a lot of sequences in this film that are really not in order, and that's something that helps the audience stay engaged. In my opinion, any film, and I think it's really interesting that they decided to integrate this sort of a style of filmmaking into this sort of film. Any film that goes in a way that's unorthodoxly played out, in a way that, it's not linear storytelling, that helps to engage the audience a little bit more, since we're trying to piece together puzzles. Now, that kind of thing typically, in my opinion, works better for sci-fi, maybe even action. And it's not the type of thing that I would think works in a romantic comedy setting, but Marc Webb pulled it off really well in this film. I liked how everything bounced back and forth a lot, and it helped create a better picture of the events that occurred, as well as gain a better understanding for these characters, in my opinion. We got to see these characters through a lens that isn't very orthodox, and it helped give all these characters more rounded out personalities. And sometimes we'd go back and we'd see events that occurred before or after a certain event, and it helped make the movie so much more engaging. That's thanks to the direction of Marc Webb and the screenwriters of this film, who did an excellent job of making the film engaging through nonlinear storytelling. Again, it's very interesting that they use this in this sort of genre which made this movie very unorthodox because no one really uses this kind of storytelling in a romantic comedy film. So I found that really refreshing and really great to see on the screen once again. So that was really interesting. Again, as I said, JGL and Zooey Deschanel gave excellent performances. Also, in terms of the themes that this movie deals with, it does deal with a bunch of different themes like fate and, you know, how that it relates to certain things. I thought they did a really good job in terms of dialogue also, where it didn't always feel on the nose. There were some sequences where it did feel on the nose, particularly Chloë Grace Moretz as a child in this film. She's a child in this film. Some of her dialogue, some of her characters' dialogues felt a little bit on the nose occasionally, but she did help keep the movie a little bit lighthearted. Other times, though, the film did produce basically its themes in a subtle, subdued way, and most of the dialogue was very subtle. It didn't go on the nose that much, which is something I find really irritating when you're trying to present your movie's messages or themes in an on-the-nose way. Oh my god, I hate that so much, and thankfully this film did not do that. Stylistically, there's also some very interesting things going on in 500 Days of Summer. Music choices are really good in this film, but the director takes on very distinct sort of styles depending on the mood or what's going on in the film. There's one particularly dance sequence that caught me a little bit off guard initially with JGL, but it kind of fits in the movie and helps to express that emotion in a specific way. Similarly, later on, there's a particular scene where Joseph Gordon-Levitt is watching whatever, like a French film or something when he's sad, and that kind of strangely fit the scenario and helped to express the mood and also made the film a little tinge of comedy. This movie is not laugh out loud funny, but there are certain aspects of comedy that they try to put in using, and the way that they produce this comedy is using a little bit of off-kilter filmmaking, you know, offbeat filmmaking basically. And honestly, some parts of the film felt like what would happen if Taika Waititi directed a romantic comedy. That's basically what Marc Webb, in my opinion, has somewhat produced here. You know, so stylistically, it's a very distinct and different film. As I said, though, the themes in this film are really interesting and really refreshing, and some of the messages that the film has will seem timely depending on, you know, where you're in. And in terms of fate and stuff, they deal with some heady material, but I think that the film did a great job of making the film overall lighthearted, and thank God this movie did not go any longer. It's a brisk 90-minute, 95-minute movie, and to be able to pack all that information, again, that has to do with the nonlinear storytelling, that they were able to pack all that information in 95 minutes, and to give, you know, relatable themes and you know, messages that are actually different from typical romantic comedies, and to package that in a 95-minute movie was difficult, but 500 Days of Summer pulled it off thanks to excellent direction and, again, excellent cast, good dialogues. Overall, this is a strong movie. It's really refreshing to see a different sort of take on this kind of film, because this is one genre that's been cliched to death. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh, action movies have been cliched to death, but this is really the genre that's been cliched to death. Considering the fact that this is such an old movie, and here we are now when we have movies like Me Before You starring Emilia Clarke and stuff, you know, you wish that Marc Webb were working more frequently in the genre. That said, Marc Webb did do that movie Gifted with Chris Evans that I'm really anxious to check out. So overall, I think I'm going to give 500 Days of Summer an A- for being a different sort of film and producing a film that's in its genre, works in its genre, but does a good job of presenting some interesting themes, and is directed very well with very, very knockout performance by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Guys, I enjoyed his performance to the fullest. I mean, this is some of the best work I've seen him in. So I'm really hoping to, you know, go and seek out more of Joseph Gordon-Levitt doing things, you know, outside of, you know, Inception sort of films. I want to see what else JGL can do. So yeah, I gave 500 Days of Summer an A-, and thank you so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the post notif bell next to the subscribe button so you know every time I make a new post. And let me know what you thought of 500 Days of Summer the first time you saw it in the comments below, because this is a really old movie, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen this film. Did you agree with my review? Did you disagree with my review? I think overall most people enjoyed this film when it first came out and has grown to become kind of a classic in terms of romantic comedies. Also, let me know down below thoughts on the Amazing Spider-Man stuff, because honestly, in my opinion, the first one's not that bad, and then the second one is pretty messy. So let me know about all those things in the comments down below, and thank you so much for watching, guys.